Hi there, I'm Black Bright, broadcasting out of the UK. I keep forgetting because I'm normally Black Bright when I'm talking about social issues and I'm talking about legislation. But now I'm Dark Shades because this is my counselling channel. And I'm not quite sure whether I'm counselling or just talking through a series of topics which I feel um, some people need answers to, and sometimes I feel qualified enough to give those answers. Most of the time, it's because I've experienced some of them myself. Sometimes it's through counselling others and people revealing certain stuff to me. But yeah, so today I wanted to talk about can is there trust after infidelity? How do we continue in a relationship after we've been betrayed? So, is there forgiveness after infidelity? It's a very big question. And it's one that is very difficult to answer because it really depends on the reasons for the infidelity. There can be some biological reasons, and I was reading somewhere that, let me tell you, that 3% of mammals are monogamous, i.e., they stay with one partner for their whole life. There's something called evolutionary biology, which means it's less risky for men to be unfaithful because back in the olden days, women would get pregnant. However, some people, I've got something in my throat, some people would continue to, in that vein, well, I can have sex with whoever I want and I can get away with it. Now, it's not even as simple as that. Apparently, there is something called a long allele variant that's in some people, and some people have a short allele variant. Now, if you have a long allele variant, which is a gene on a chromosome, something like the colour of your hair, but there's things inside each of us that make us act in different ways. So apparently, if you have a long allele variant, you're 50%, you're more likely to cheat. If you have a short allele variant, 22%, you're more likely to cheat. And also, there is something called vasopressin levels, and if they're low, you're less likely to cheat. Now, what am I trying to say? Some people just can't help cheating. Sometimes it's got to do with the way they've been brought up, baggage. Um, I've done a video on adverse childhood experiences, depending on how you grew up, whether or not you were attached to your parent or not, whether or not you was rejected, whether or not you was abused. All of those things are going to dictate what's going to happen when you grow up and how committed you are. And so it really depends on the wholeness of the individual. So if somebody cheats on you, what is that about? Did you play a part in that? Do you feel responsible for that behavior? If you do, does that mean you're more likely to forgive that person? Or are you too angry? You feel too betrayed, you'll never forgive them because what they've done is unforgivable. Some people say that when somebody cheats on you, it's unforgivable. But do you think it's realistic to expect two people to be monogamous for 50, 60, 70 years? I know there are people that are, especially in the olden days. And even then, some of them got a bit fruity and when it had it off with somebody else. Like I said, it all depends the reason behind it. I mean, if the relationship has got bored, sometimes it's simply because the relationship has got bored. Sometimes it's because there's two people. Some people like closeness, some people like distance. Now, somebody who likes distance, if somebody gets too close and they feel clingy, and so they kind of draw away. And yes, you might have seen that in the beginning of a relationship, but you might have thought it was attractive. You know, somebody calling you every 5 minutes, somebody quite possessive. You might think, oh, they really love me. But after a while, when you're in a relationship, it can be overwhelming and overpowering. Similar for those people who like closeness. There's some people who are quite clingy and they thrive on closeness, they thrive on touch, they thrive on intimacy. Now, if you are not compatible with regard to closeness and distance, that's going to cause a problem because the person who it feels possessed, they're more likely to feel as though they are going to go out and seek their individuality, seek their identity almost. Am I just a wife? Am I just a mother? Am I just a cleaner? Am I just a worker? No, I'm somebody who has needs. And sometimes people go out and are unfaithful just as a form of rebelliousness to satisfy those needs. Similarly, somebody who's clingy and their spouse is not, who doesn't like being in too close proximity, might go out and seek that kind of intimacy, not necessarily sexual. It might just mean emotional intimacy. They might need somebody to connect with. And yes, that should be with your wife, but supposing you've selected based on a wrong set of circumstances. Sometimes when we meet people, depending on our frame of mind, we believe that that person we've met is the person. And sometimes we see red flags and we ignore them. And sometimes it's just a question of whether or not you're compatible. And sometimes people force themselves to be compatible with someone. Sometimes it's depending on the age of the person, whether or not they feel as though if they leave it too long, they might not meet someone. Sometimes it's, you don't want to be overly pernickety, so you accept the failings of someone. Sometimes, for especially people who don't believe in sex before marriage, once they get married, they find that, either the husband can't get it up or the woman is frigid or whatever the reason is, but you're not sexually compatible. What happens then? So there's a lot of culminating factors why people cheat. And when you think about all of the possible different reasons why someone cheats, and it doesn't mean that they don't love you. It doesn't mean that they're fed up of you. It just means, gosh, I just need something else. Just for a little while. I just need to find myself. The thing with when you're unfaithful, and you have a lover, and the lover, both lovers know that each of you have someone else, there's something exciting about that connection, and you can actually be yourself. You would think you can be yourself in a wife role or in a husband role, but sometimes it takes an extramarital affair for you to find yourself. I mean, there are some people in this world that when you don't even know that you're sexy. You might think, oh, I'm a bit of a frump. I don't really like sex. I don't really like kissing. I don't really like this. I don't want anybody to touch me. And then you meet somebody and that person, it's just like it's somebody new. And it's just like you love kissing them. You love holding them. You love being in close proximity to them. You're willing to make sacrifices for them. But what happens if you're married and you meet somebody like that on the outside? What do? All of a sudden you're confronted with, I've got a husband, I've got children, and sex is boring. He bores me to death, but I love him. And then you've got this hot rod on the outside who, makes you reach multiple orgasms and, tender, taking you out, excitement, chatting, having a good time. And you're like, bloody hell, did I marry the wrong person? So that's the risk of being unfaithful. You might find that what you thought was going to be a little fling turns out to be a fully fledged affair. Well, fully fledged affair. Some of them, it means that you're leaving your husband and your children and your home and everything. And then sometimes that fling is just physical and it fizzles out. And so you've given up the stability of your home and your marriage for something that's whimsical. That can happen too. I mean, it's very easy to get caught up with sexual relationships, especially when the sex is good. It's very easy to have a mask or a veil and be taken out of reality, because there's something about good sex that makes you irrational, and it can make you make really silly decisions. So if somebody has an affair with somebody and then all of a sudden they're kind of, oh, I want to go, I'm going to leave my wife, I'm going to come with you, I'm going to live with you. And then you find out that once they've left the wife and the home and the kids, that woman doesn't normally want them because they only liked the idea of having an affair. They don't want the responsibility of a fully fledged full time man. And that man's given up his home and everything, lost everything for this, what he thought was fantastic sex, fantastic communication. You know, they're both vibing off the same page. And it's gone because one thing about the physical is that it's temporary and you can actually engage or disengage intimacy. You can have fantastic sex if you're in the right frame of mind, and you can switch it off just like that. So, but I think some couples think that this is how it is. Some people think that, oh, you know, especially when they're having an affair, they think, oh, this sex is fantastic. This woman is fantastic. She knows how to tick. She ticks all the right boxes, or he ticks all the right boxes. And they don't realize it's a mind thing. Satisfying sex is a mind thing. It's got nothing to do, well, it has got something to do with individuals, but you can actually make your mind enjoy sex. So, depending on the circumstances, when a man or a female cheats on a partner and they find somebody who happens to be quite good in bed because they're both in that mindset of, oh yeah, you know, this is a bit of fun, you know, we're going to do this, and it ends up being the two of them are so relaxed and so open that sex appears good. Some of them mess up their marriages based on that. Now, if you're the wife of someone who has met somebody else and who's been cheating, you know, the first thing you're going to think of is, has he done this with her that he does with me? Has he done that with her that he does with me? Has she been kissing him? Where has she been touching him? You know, all that kind of stuff. You start wondering, you know, was she good in bed? Is she better than me? Does she look better than me? And in your head, you're comparing. In your head, you're kind of thinking, oh, is it because, you know, I'm not good enough? Because when someone cheats, that's what it does. It kind of makes you feel as though you're not good enough. And so that's why they've gone to someone else, when it might have nothing to do with that. It might have to do, they might be going through a midlife crisis for you now. They might need to prove themselves. They might need validation. We don't know. It might not have anything to do with you at all. He might need reassurance. And because you're his wife and you're used to him, you probably don't give him that reassurance. Some men just need extra nurturing. They need extra stroking. They need extra touching. They need all sorts. And what happens in a lot of relationships, people become complacent and they stop touching and caring and being loving. And what happens is that person, whoever feels neglected, if they can get it outside, some of them don't even mean to get it outside. Sometimes when men cheat, or even females cheat, well, let's talk about men first. When men cheat, sometimes they can be at work and, you know, a woman starts talking to them, paying attention to them, and they're like, oh, you know, that woman asked me this. My wife doesn't even know that. This woman knows my habits. She knows what I like to eat. My wife doesn't even do that. My wife doesn't even say that. Similarly with a woman. She can be at work and a guy says, oh, you're beautiful. I just can't wait for you to come into work every day. Every day I come into work just to see you. Might bring her some flowers, might say, let's go out for lunch. Could initially start off with something like that. But the husband hasn't been paying her any attention. The husband, as far as he's concerned, it's my wife, she's all right. Doesn't notice that she's starting to look nice, starting to dress up a little bit. Just goes straight over his head. Meanwhile, they end up going out for lunch. Next thing you know, they're in the car, they're having a talk. They look at each other in the eyes. Something connects. They kiss. Oh, should we book a room? They start getting all horny or whatever. Boof. Has happened. She then goes home with a something in her step, whatever they call it. What do they call it? Something in her step, a spring in her step. And similarly with the man. A woman starts paying him extra attention, telling him how his suit looks nice, how she likes his haircut, she likes his shoes, has he got time for lunch? Sometimes it's just things like that cause, sometimes it's not intentional, but sometimes it could just be timing in relationships when you've had a row or things aren't going well, or somebody's lost their job, or something has gone wrong. Something isn't great. And at that time, some kind of devilish thing comes on the outside, swoops in, and takes away your spouse or your partner. I often talk about an ex-employer who had been married for over 50 years, and he met somebody, I think she was half her age, but I don't even think her age had anything to do with it. She was just so jolly and lively and, carefree. And she just saw him and she just fancied him off, and she thought he was the bee's knees. Nobody else did. But she did. And I don't think he'd had that attention before. Next thing you know, he leaves his wife and, gives her the home, and he sets up home with this other woman, and they've been happy ever since. So that isn't even like it was regrettable. He cheated and he made a good decision, because obviously whoever he was with wasn't the right person for him. Or, she wasn't doing it for him. Maybe she weren't giving him a bit. I mean, I think he was probably in his 50s at that time. Maybe, she wasn't horny or anything like that, his wife. But who knows? Anyway. So, do you know why the infidelity took place? Boredom? Was he tempted? Is it opportunity? Dissatisfaction with the relationship? Alcohol, drugs, midlife crisis, unresolved personal issues, baggage? I've mentioned all of that. But cheating does shatter trust. Some relationships do not recover. And why? What does cheating say to you? Does cheating say I'm not good enough? Or I'm too good? He doesn't love me? He wants to upgrade or downgrade, whatever. On average, relationships take 2 years to heal after betrayal. It's very, very difficult if you haven't got children to hold a relationship together. And even now, children don't hold relationship together. You have to have a strong sense of commitment. You have to have some kind of motivation. After somebody's betrayed you, I don't know what it is about when somebody cheats on you, why it's so devastating. Is it so devastating because it's your ego? What is it? I know when I was young, and I remember coming home from work. I was about 18 at the time. I don't know if I was married or whether I was just going out with this bloke. I might have married him. I'm not quite sure at that point. No, I don't think I was married then. I think I was just dating him. Anyway, I went home one lunchtime. He was having sex with somebody in our bed, and um, because I had the key, I opened up the door. I saw what was going on, and I walked off and left and went back to work. And the funny thing is, I remember that, but I don't remember what happened afterwards. I know I left and went away somewhere. I don't know where I went, but I know I left, and then he came back and started, going on like the usual crap that they do. And I know I ended up going out with him again, and I think I ended up marrying him, believe it or not. But yeah, but that behaviour he had was um was it was perpetual. It was like that was who he was. It's almost like he could not be unfaithful. It was like that was normal for him. And in the end, I think the infidelity, along with the emotional abuse, I just decided I had enough and I just left. Now, supposing he had been unfaithful, but very loving and endearing to me, would I have still left? I don't know. I think it all depends about what infidelity tells you about yourself, really. I mean, if by your spouse or your partner being unfaithful, it makes you feel as though you're not good enough, then you are not going. You're going to find it really difficult to forgive that betrayal. If you think that that person is just an immature, stupid little idiot, well, you might, but you love him. You might say, what the hell? It really is an individual choice. It really is where you are at that time. Infidelity should not be condoned and it should not be supported. But there's a difference between when you're young and you're a teenager as opposed to when you're mature and when two people make a commitment and they should know um, what a commitment means and whether or not you're prepared to commit to a relationship. And if you are prepared to commit to a relationship, but there's an accident that happens in the way, what does that mean? What does that say about you? What does that say to you about that person? Does it make you feel like you don't love them anymore? Does it make you feel less than? Does it make you feel as though you don't want them to touch you or you don't want them to come near you? What is that person saying to reassure you that it won't happen again? I mean, all of these things are factors in when you come to a decision about whether or not you can take someone back after they've cheated on you. There's a lot of factors that come into play. And it is about their behavior afterwards. Are they remorseful, genuinely remorseful? Do you get the inkling that that is their nature and they're going to do it again? Are they one of those with the long allele? So it means that they are more likely to cheat. They can't help it. Once a cheat, always a cheat. It might just be a simple biological thing that they can't help it. Or it might just be someone who's made a mistake or someone who's feeling low and neglected and they needed some validity and some reassurance. Only you can know how you feel about that person who's cheated on you, if they have. Well, they would have had, because that is the reason why we're watching this program. Anyway, cheating is not new. Relationship beyond 40 years is probably, they've probably transgressed at least once. Is lifelong monogamy possible? Would it be better to get married when you're older? Less likely to cheat, hopefully. Unless, of course, they fall in that 50%. Rebuilding a relationship where trust is broken is hard work. Are both partners prepared to put in the work? That's another thing. We live in a society where people don't have patience, where they want something quickly. They don't have the endurance. So it is an individual. And also, the thing is with infidelity, the shame about it. And I think this applies for anyone, regardless of how open minded you are, unless, of course, you have an open relationship. And then I'm not quite sure if that's infidelity. If it's an open relationship, it's not really infidelity. But it just does make you skeptical about that person. Suspicious, you ask questions. And what happens is that when they're going out, you're always wondering where they're going. You know, you don't want to be like that. You just want a relationship where, you know, you're free thinkers. But when somebody's been unfaithful to you, it's like, oh, where are you going? What time are you coming back? And, you know, then you're phoning, then you're checking. You don't want all of that. If they don't phone you back straight away, you have all these suspicions. You don't want that. And that's when a relationship cannot, or it'd be really difficult to survive, to let the relationship survive when that trust, that betrayal has caused you to be skeptical and cannot trust that person. If you cannot trust that person or feel you'll never be able to trust them again, there's no point pursuing the relationship. You have to know that you can forgive that person and move on. And you have to kind of feel, you know, at least 90% sure that they're not going to do it again. It's not something that they think, oh, well, she's forgiven me once. That means I've got permission to do it again. You have to know the mindset of that person. What kind of mindset do they have? Was it like a mistake? Was it kind of a moment of weakness? Were they drunk? And you know what's happening now is that you're finding people, they're being unfaithful to people of the same sex. How does that make you feel? If your partner is unfaithful to somebody of the same sex, is that worse? Is it better? Does it feel any different? So the cheating has to stop. You need total honesty. Now, with total honesty, does it matter how long it's been going on for? Are you the type of person who wants to know all the answers? Like, did she satisfy you? Did she make you happy? Where did you do it? How many times did you do it? Have you done it with anybody else? Did you wear a condom? Did she reach an orgasm? I want to see the emails. I want to see the texts. You know, do you want to know all of that? Personally, I don't. All I want to know is that it was an error in judgment. That's all I want to know, and it won't happen again. And I need to feel reasonably sure that I can believe that. Depending on where you are in the relationship, like if it's a new relationship and that happens, that relationship isn't even going to get off the ground. I'm gone. I'm gone. But I'm talking about if you're in a relationship and you've been in a relationship for years, you have to kind of ask yourself, do you want to start over? Do you want to end it? Do you just want to break? You have to decide what you want. And then once you decide what you want, you have to stick with it. Because betrayal is hard to get over and it takes a lot of patience. I mean, how do you rebuild trust? Some people say, well, he should be able to give you all the passwords on his phone. I think that's a bit extreme. I don't want the passwords on my partner's phone. I don't want to know who he's texting, who he's WhatsApping. I want to be able to trust him. That's what I want. If I have to start thinking about passwords and picking up his phone and looking at it, it's done. I can't be asked. I've got other things to do, other things that are more important. I haven't got time to be checking up on a man to see what he's doing. So, what are the underlying issues? The problems in the relationship, and the problems in the relationship are not an excuse to cheat. Like some people, have you known these people, especially in some of these movies, they say, oh, you know, we weren't together, we had an argument. And they use that as an excuse to cheat. Of course, you're bloody together. Just because you weren't together for one night doesn't give you an excuse to go and have it off with someone else. What kind of thing that? But you'll find people say that. They have a row with their partner Next thing you know, they're sleeping with somebody else and they feel justified because, as far as they're concerned, in their head, they weren't together. I think prevention is better than cure. I think it's really important to be attentive to your spouse, communicate with your spouse, have good sex, ask for what you want, and give quality time to each other. Also, like I said, there's also we also have to think about the adverse childhood experiences, those things that have happened in childhood that could impact how an individual grows up as an adult, how they react in relationships. That's really, really important. When you're dating somebody, it's really important to find out how they grew up, who they grew up with, whether or not they were abused. They might not want to tell you, but you'll see how they respond when you ask them those questions. Have you been abused? Have you been neglected? You know, did you grow up with your mum? Did you grow up with your dad? Are your parents together? You don't have to roll them all off like that. But, you know, every now and then you ask a new question and, you know, kind of put it in so it doesn't come like an interrogation. But get some idea about who you're dating, who you're going to intending to spend time with. So you can know that whether or not they have got attachment issues, whether they do need validating, whether they are more likely to cheat if you don't give them all the attention. Because sometimes it's men with low self-esteem and women with low self-esteem that need constant validation that cheat. They always need their ego massaged. So, resuming a healthy sexual relationship is difficult after betrayal for the reasons I said before. There is the conflict. You've got an aspect of everyone that yearns for safety in a relationship, and also the aspect that yearns for adventure. I mean, sometimes you can be in a relationship for so long, and then, you know, something comes along and you're like, oh, you know, it's human nature, isn't it? But you just have to know your limitations. You don't have to carry it through. You don't have to carry it through to sex, or you don't even have to carry it through. It's best not even to carry it through to even a conversation, because some people are so bloody weak, they don't even know how to control themselves. And once it reaches a certain point, especially with men, they don't want to let the side down, so they give in. So, does also depend, like I said, on the duration of the relationship, how old the relationship is, how you handle it, whether or not it's worth pursuing. If it's a long relationship, you might want to talk about it a bit more, and you might want to see if you can build the trust. Only you can know that, if you can build the trust again, and only you can know whether or not that person is going to betray you again. And if they are going to betray you, what are you going to do about it? No point making false threats. You have to be able to commit yourself to whatever it is you say you're going to do if that person cheats again. You need to be able to say to them, look, I'm going to forgive you this time, but if I ever find out that you've cheated again, it's over. No turning back. So it also depends on your mindset, your motivation for the relationship. That has something to do with it as well. Some people break up to make up. Sometimes, you know, like when they say you have an argument and then you make up and it's so sweet. Sometimes the relationship gets boring, and that's why people go and have an affair. And so they don't expect the relationship or the marriage to break down. They're just hoping that it prompts their wife or their spouse to energize a relationship, to do something, to please them or appreciate them. Sometimes it's about that. It's just like, I don't know what to do. They're telling you this, they're telling you that, and nothing's happening, and you're ignoring them. So they do something extreme like have an affair and make sure you find out about it and hope that, you know, you'll change your ways and become a little bit more interested. And then they have that make-up sex and everything's back to normal. Always remember that whether you're married or not, you don't own anyone. Everyone has free will. And you cannot force someone to be faithful to you. They have to want to be faithful to you. And so if somebody is unfaithful to you, it's where you are as an individual, how strong you are, how emotionally stable you are, as to whether or not you can accept that person in your life, whether or not you feel it was a genuine mistake. So but you don't own them. You're in a union, you have a contract, a marriage contract, but you don't own anyone. That person is free to do whatever he likes or she likes. When they choose to please you, you have to accept that with a great degree of gratitude. If you're in a relationship and that person chooses to love you and please you and protect you and feed you, you have to be grateful. Not every partner is willing to do that, and they choose. They're not obligated to do it. They're married to you. You don't own them. They don't own you. They can do whatever they like. So the only thing you're hoping for is that if they love you, they're going to treat you well, and they won't hurt you, and they won't betray you. But always remember, don't take it for granted. Change of perception. Once you change your perception that you don't own your husband, or you don't own your wife, they're not a possession, then you can start relaxing a little bit and seeing how you want to progress the relationship. I think you have three options. You can either get depressed and miserable, you can hold on to the emotional pain. The more practical way is to put it in the past and move on. If you love each other, depending on the reason, you now commit to fidelity, and you don't broach the subject again. You don't keep bringing it up every time you have a little argument. Oh, what about when you went off with what's her name, or and he likewise. When you went off with that man and blah blah blah, keep throwing it in your face. You just need to let it rest. Send it to bed. Or you can explore. You can explore the reasons why it happened. Accept that marriages do have their failings. Emerge from the trauma much healthier. Sometimes affair find a part of you. Help you find a part of you. Sometimes it's about self-exploration. You might have thought you're one way. You have an affair and you realise you're totally different. That's why some relationships, they can be with somebody for years, and then they break up, and dating somebody for years, they break up and they end up with somebody else, and they get married within a couple of minutes because they've just met somebody who happens to be compatible. And yet, sometimes you can be in a relationship, it's like pulling a sack uphill. It's so much hard work. Relationships are not supposed to be hard work. You're not supposed to be going home and thinking, oh God, I hope she's not in, or I hope he's not in, or I wonder if he's going to be watching the TV, or I wonder if he's going to be doing this, or it's not supposed to be like that. It's not supposed to be like that. Relationships, you're supposed to look forward to your spouse coming home, or your partner coming home. You're supposed to look forward to it. So, affairs, there's a different set of expectations in affairs as opposed to marriages. Or sometimes there's no expectations. You just receive. You can be someone else, i.e. you can be yourself but someone else. You can be, one of these women that put on these little outfits, nurse outfits or whatever. You don't know what you're like in an affair. Or the man can be, really might realise that he's another Don Juan, or, what's it, 50 Shades of Grey? That guy, Chris, whatever his name was, Christian, might realise he's got that, depending on the woman, because different people bring out different sides in you. And that's the dangerous thing about affairs, because you don't know what that person is going to bring out in you that you didn't know you had. So, erotic. Supposing sex with a lover is better than sex with your partner. Is it just about sex? And that's another thing, like I said, you've got to be really, really careful when you go into these relationships. Supposing this person is better than your partner, what are you going to do? What's important? And is infidelity just about sex? No, it's not. It's about friendship. It's about attention. It's about getting validation. It's about having permission to be frivolous. That's what infidelity is about. It's being a chance to be rebellious and actually to be yourself, who you want to be. Sometimes it's really tiring and exhausting being a responsible person. You're a responsible husband, responsible wife, behaving properly all the time. For Christ's sake, give me a break. Give me an affair already. That's how it is for some people. You know, they go home, the bloody husband looks like crap, the wife looks like crap, the kids are screaming in the background, the house is messy. You're like, bloody hell, man, is this what I signed up for? And then you have somebody at work looking all hunky-dory and they're looking at you and you're like, my luck's in. But sometimes it's a trap. Sometimes it's a trap, so be careful. What glitters ain't gold. You don't know what that woman is going to want from you. Why is she interested in you? You have to ask yourself that question, especially if you don't look too great. Or why is he interested in you? So you have to kind of think that, because you know, when you're breaking up in marriages, especially where there's children, there's a big cost involved. And it could be just about talking to your spouse at the right time, in the right frame of mind, and saying, you know, it'd be really lovely, you know, even if you can't afford to go to the hair salon because funds are low, you know, let's put some colour in your hair. You know, you can get some colour for like $3.99. Let's put some. I do it together. Put colour in her hair. Put it in a ponytail. Mess around with makeup. Mess around with changing clothes. Put some fun in your relationship or your marriage. It's bloody boring. Been with somebody 10, 15, 20 years. Please. You need to put some energy in it. Anyway, that's all I've got to say. It might not be what you want to hear, but I was ranting on. Bye-bye.